Hello, I just got done attending the Oroville City Council meeting, and Sheriff Honea has spoken here, and he was met with applause and adoration. Just thought you guys should all see this video. So it's a little long, and it also includes part of the rest of the declaration of the night. And I think if you stay through that, it's really informative on what happens in local government in times of emergency. So enjoy the video and have a good time.
I'm sorry, we're actually going to rush right into item number 11. We're going to move it up because we have a privilege to have Sheriff Honea here with us, and he's going to come up and make a presentation right now. Item number 11 on the agenda, let me read it really quickly, is the declaration of local emergency and ratification of proclamation of existence of local emergency by the Acting Director of Emergency Services. Thank you, Sheriff Honea.
Thank you, Mayor, for having me. Vice Mayor, members of the council, thank you all so much for.
No. I'm standing up.
Okay, no, that's okay. Very good, very good. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Thank you all so much for having me this evening. And I received a very warm welcome from the crowd, so I want to thank all of you for that. That meant a great deal. Chief, how are you? Good. So I am here to answer any questions you might have. I will tell you that it has been an interesting week, to say the least, and I'm still wrapping my mind around all of the aspects of this. There's certainly a lot of moving parts to this whole thing. I will tell you that I feel quite a bit better today than I did last Sunday. I feel as though we are moving forward, and some important milestones are being made with regard to progress and fixing a dam system. And I want to make it clear, we're not talking about the dam itself. The dam is in good shape. It's the overall system. But there's good progress being made on the part of the Department of Water Resources and all the contractors and consultants and federal authorities that have come in to help with that whole process. That I believe is moving us to a point where the risk in terms of public safety is decreasing every single day. And that makes me feel good. As you know, on Sunday, things were at a critical point, resulting in the issuance of a emergency evacuation order, a mandatory evacuation order. From there, I waited until the EWR, Army Corps of Engineers, and FERC had an opportunity to inspect the area in front of the emergency spillway, and some effort was made to continue to lower the lake level so that we wouldn't have the need to utilize that emergency spillway again, at least for the time being, and then was able to lift that mandatory evacuation order and replace it with a warning. Did that as soon as I possibly could and felt safe to do that. And now we're looking at the milestones that we want to see achieved before lifting the warning. There's a couple of things. One, CAL FIRE Incident Team number 4, who, by the way, has been working on this incident along with CAL FIRE Incident Team number 3. Incredibly professional people, top-notch people, done an incredible job of helping manage this crisis in conjunction with the Department of Water Resources and all of the local public safety and local agency partners. They have told me by a text message tonight that they finished up some updated mapping that gives us a much better idea of what a potential spillway failure looks like versus a complete dam failure, which was the information we were trying to operate off of last time. That's a good thing because it will allow us to tailor if there is a need, and I'm growing more and more confident every day that there won't be, but if there is a need, tailor our evacuations more narrowly to those areas that would be affected, but also give us a better idea of what areas that might currently be under the evacuation warning that we could lift and move out, and so that we would keep just those areas. The next milestones that I think are important to look towards as milestones that could provide us with some sense of comfort or safety or reduced risk would be one. And there are three of them, and we are very close to achieving all three, actually. The first one was lowering the lake level down to the 850 level. That's the traditional flood pool level. There's some discussion about lowering it even more so that there's some even additional capacity that's positive. Number two, the work being done to fortify the area located in front of the emergency spillway with those massive rocks and concrete is moving along. As I understand, DWR identified three primary spots that they wanted to work on. One of them being the canyon, as I kind of like to call it now.
Right.
Yeah, that started this whole mess.
Right.
And two of those sites are 100% complete, and one is less than 100. I don't know what the exact percentage is as we sit here today, but they're moving along on that. Again, that will only come into play if we ever get to the point where the emergency spillway comes into play. And again, I think we're working. DWR is working hard to keep that from happening. And the third, and probably I think one of the more important pieces, is getting through this current weather system. Last night we did well. We weathered that storm well. Being able to lower the flow of water coming out of the primary spillway. It was at about 100,000 CFS, which, by the way, last week I didn't know what CFS was. So yeah, it sound like I've been talking about it.
You learn real fast.
Yeah, you learn fast. You learn fast in crisis. Anyway, lower that. That was about 100,000 CFS. They lowered it to 60 and then 55. They bumped it back up to 60. They need to lower that in order to get those big barges in with the big excavators, so that they can begin to remove the debris created by the original spillway damage from in front of there. The problem is that debris is causing water to back up towards the powerhouse. That's causing some flooding there, although they're waging a valiant effort to keep it from flooding to the point that it causes permanent damage, and I commend DWR for that. Once they get in there and lower that and get that out, then they can start the powerhouse up. And to me, that's significant, because then that gives us two ways to get water out of the lake and prevent the emergency spillway from coming into place. I've got to tell you that unless you really pay a lot of attention to this, you don't necessarily understand how complex the balancing act is. You have to worry about the amount of water coming in, the amount of water going out, the impact on the powerhouse, the impact on the spillways, the impact on the system downstream, and what that could affect people if you release too much water. And then it's also quite important to note that the Oroville Dam is a critical piece of infrastructure, both for this region and for the state and beyond. And so there's a lot of moving parts to that. I have to say that the incident command team that I've been co-incident or working with, that there's two other individuals. Acting Director Bill Croyle, who, by the way, 2 months on the job. Yeah, 2 months on the job for that guy. He has been very receptive, and immediately when we had an opportunity to talk and come to an understanding about what my concerns were, and I have a better understanding what his concerns were, he has been spot on in terms of communicating with me, and before making any decisions, ratifying them with me when there is a public safety implication. And I think that is a positive thing. He's also done a lot of work internally to clear roadblocks so that critical decisions could be made to deal with some of these important balancing issues that are going on. And then the other incident commander, co-incident commander, is Deputy Chief Kevin Lawson from CAL FIRE, and has been instrumental in helping that go forward. So I think we're in a better position today than we were before. We're moving forward, keeping a close eye on how we obviously navigate through this. And what I'm trying to tell people is it's important to keep our eye on the ball, look for opportunities in crisis, and I think there are plenty of them. And The last piece that I just want to highlight, because I think it's the most important piece in many respects, is situations like this often bring people together in a way and at a level that you would never imagine possible. And I have been overwhelmed by the support of my community, of our community. And I have been overwhelmed by the diligence of my staff and your staff and CAL FIRE staff and everybody. There are thousands of construction workers, DWR people, there are thousands of people who are waging this war to get us back to where we need to do. And as I move around, I am hearing about hundreds and hundreds of acts of courage and bravery and compassion and kindness and executive decision making far beyond the pay grade of the people who made the decision, but were completely and 100% appropriate under the circumstances. And the night that I said we have to do this, I gave my staff 3 orders and the people who were in that room some directives, which was 1, move our emergency notification center, or our dispatch center, because we had to go communicate, evacuate our inmates because they can't fend for themselves, get all hands on deck. And when I did that, I had the lump in my throat with the recognition that I had just ordered thousands of people out of an area that I deemed unsafe, and just ordered hundreds of public safety and community support people into an area that they were going to be risking their lives. And I am so proud to say that nobody said no. They all came. They all came running. And that is a testament to this community, and a testament to the people who serve this community. And so, as I've said time and time again, making that decision was my responsibility, and I take full responsibility. But the credit of getting the job done goes to the thousands of people who make up our public safety professionals, our public service professionals, and members of this community who came out and did what they needed to do to get this done. So I want to thank all of you, and I certainly want to thank the council. And with that, I'll be quiet and answer any questions that you might have.
Well, I think it's just a privilege that you're here, Sheriff, and we just want to publicly acknowledge you for everything you did and everything you are continuing to do. I know that it's been rough for all of us, but having you pull everybody together the way you did and be the point person on the news and on the press, I mean, it was calming for me. It was, I knew that you were speaking the truth, and I knew you had all the facts from the top on down, and that was really what was required. And so I just want to say thank you from my heart.
Thank you all very, very much. And I've done a lot to try to keep contact with people and talk to people, and you all have been around and supportive. And I've seen we've run over each other at meetings, and Chief Agrone and I have been talking, and Mr. Russ and I have been in communication. So I feel well supported by the city of Oroville. I feel like we're one fight, and we're all fighting it together. And so thank you, and we'll continue to march in that direction. And I think we're going to get through this.
I understand you have another council meeting to be at.
Actually, I don't have a council meeting. That I was wrong on my calendar, but there are no shortage of meetings in my life.
Right.
Right now, so I need to go meet with the CAL FIRE team folks about that. So if there's anything else I can answer, I'll do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, go take a break, just a little break.
In a couple of months.
Okay.
We'll see. Okay, folks. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I might, in that vein, and on that agenda item,
Yes,
since this is still a continuation of item number 11,
yes.
and I just say that so we can get the sheriff's comments under the umbrella of item number 11. As occurs in an emergency situation, The council is obviously not in session, not seated at the dais, not able to make appropriate declarations. The government code provides that the Director of Emergency Services for the city may issue a proclamation of a local emergency. Pursuant to the City of Oroville's Emergency Action Plan, is that, am I getting that right, Emergency Action Plan? Because I've seen a couple of different names for it. Pursuant to the city's Emergency Action Plan, the incident commander is the city administrator or the acting city administrator, in this instance, Don Rust. As you can see from the agenda item, Don Rust signed, as attachment C, a proclamation of local emergency on February 15, 2017, declaring a local emergency. And while the appropriate code section is cited there, the one thing I do want to tell you is that the government code limits this proclamation of local emergency to a 7-day time limit, which means it expires tomorrow. So as such, the city is required, if you want to continue the declaration and the proclamation of local emergency, you are required to pass one of your own, and that is what we have put on the agenda as item number 11. I will tell you, I did not, I think we're going to need to broaden the language slightly, but let's pass this as is right now, and we can look at broadening the language, because we may have other issues to deal with down the road. But as you can see, there are actually two things that you're going to do. One is that you ratify the declaration of local emergency that Don Rust issued, or the proclamation of local emergency. And then number two, you issue your own resolution as attachment B, that you proclaim the existence of a local emergency until you declare it doesn't exist anymore. And I would suggest that you will well know when it doesn't exist anymore, but today is not that day. It still exists as long as we are under, as the sheriff mentioned, under an emergency warning, meaning be ready. So as long as that warning is in place, certainly this resolution is in order. Now I've got some other things I can mention if you have questions, but I'm happy to leave it at that. And if you have any questions, certainly I'm happy to answer them. Those that I can't answer, I'm happy to pass off to the chief or to your Director of Emergency Operations, Don Rust.
Right. So just to clarify, the council's not in charge of an emergency. It goes up the chain. You actually have a piece of paper that maybe you could explain that.
Well, I have lots of papers that explain that, but let me just hit a few of them. And again, I apologize, I forgot my glasses and my arms are not nearly long enough, but
Maybe Bill could read it.
yeah, Bill, why don't
People there.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Chief Rose. Essentially, the document that I have in my hand is from our SIMS EOC responsibility chart out of our emergency action plan that the city maintains.
And what does SIMS mean?
Shoot, I don't know.
It's
NIMS. It's the National Information
National
Management.
Emergency.
Emer-
Got it.
SIMS is the state version of the state incident management system.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's okay. It's just an organizational chart for the city in the event during some sort of crisis or emergency. During a crisis or an emergency, which could be many things, anything from civil unrest clear to a failure of the spillway, or up to including a wildfire coming through town. In an event like that, what happens on a day-to-day operation of the city, as everyone knows, the elected body is who is governing the city and making the decisions for the city on a day-to-day basis, setting policy that staff is directed to carry out. In a situation such as what occurred this previous weekend before last, I'm sorry, the situation kind of reverses a little bit. During the time of that particular event, the Director of Emergency Services is actually the one directing the day-to-day activity of what's going on in the city. I fall underneath the Director of the Emergency Services for the city and then carry out those issues. That's clearly laid out in our manual. There's several charts that demonstrate that. And it's for the reason that an elected body is there for oversight to make sure that we're following the policies that the citizens are wanting and carrying it out and shaping and informing their community the way they want it. In an emergency situation such as this, a council is not qualified to run an event such as this. It's not meant to be negative or derogatory or anything else. It's just beyond the scope of what average normal people do every day. So we're just average, we just work in this area. So, you know, we step in and we do those things. It's only for the duration of the event that is occurring. It's not a forever thing or for long periods of time. It was never intended for that. So during this last event, essentially what happened was the council was still in place. The council has a very definite role in these situations, but the operational side of it was handed to staff that is best suited and qualified to handle that. We had moved into what's called a unified command, where there has to be a decision maker, and the sheriff is the decision maker in that situation. The sheriff is, you know, I have always enjoyed the time that I've spent with the sheriff, but I have more respect for the sheriff today than I have previously had. He is a quality human being. He's a quality man who really cares about all of Butte County. When he says that, he's not just, it's not fodder and it's not just talk, it is real compassion and concern. I mean, I've seen him demonstrate that. I watched him agonize with the decision to evacuate because he understood the difficulty that placed on all 180,000 families up and down, not only our county, but Sutter and Yuba County as well, that had to be moved. So in that situation, in that unified command, we all had a seat at the table, the decision was made, and then it was carried out. Our charts in our NIMS manual are based upon the code of regulation that comes from California. It's titled, and this is really boring and nobody probably really wants to know, but I'll tell them anyway because it's good information.
It is good information.
I've learned a lot, just like the sheriff in the last couple of weeks about how the lake works, and I never wanted to know that, but I do now. I have a greater appreciation for it. I thought it was just a big pond. I mean, you know, but it's not. I mean, it's quite the thing. The California Code of Regulation, Title 19, Division 2, subsection or section 2407 D is very clear when it states, and you have to read the whole thing. I'm not going to read all of this to you to bore you, but it's pretty clear when it says that our local government shall use multi-agency or interagency coordination to facilitate decisions for overall local government level emergency response activities. What that's telling us is that we are going to work together and we're going to use multi-agency and interagency coordination. We aren't going to sit in our own little fiefdom or our silo and make decisions for a region that is not good for the entire region because we've decided this is our kingdom and this is what we're doing. So it's directing us to work with one another. It's an absolute. It says we shall do that. If you go down further in 2409, the operational area D says the county government shall serve as the lead agency of the operational area unless another member agency or operational area assumes that responsibility by written agreement with the county government. So essentially what my point is that we fell within our emergency operating plan. We follow the law and we got this thing accomplished in a very orderly manner, which I think is a testament to the transparency of our local government, that there was trust with the community when the order was given. The community, they, regardless of what their opinion were, the vast majority of them loaded up their vehicles and headed out. So I'm very proud of our community, and I think that's probably one of the silver linings that we're going to find in this whole ordeal is the fact that the greatest asset and probably the most hidden treasure that we have in Butte County is our citizens.
Right.
We have a great community. We have wonderful people that live here and work here, and the stories are endless about the people that were compassionate with one another, helpful, and everybody came together. It was quite a thing to see. It was an amazing feat to accomplish in such a small amount of time, but it worked. I mean, I'm happy to report that, as to my knowledge at this time, no one died and no one was seriously injured from the evacuation process. So now, are there things we can do better? Absolutely. I mean, do we need to review this and listen to our critics and hear what they have to say and include those thoughts and processes into future development of plans? And what I'd like to ask this council to do as part of this is establish an ad hoc committee for a complete review of what happened, what went good, what was bad, and what do we need to do better. And then once we decide what are those things that we need to do better, establish a priority list of the council so that we can implement those things as our financial ability is there to do those things. So that's one of the things, along with this action that you're taking this evening for the disaster declaration. But I'd also like to have an ad hoc committee to work with me and to work with Dawn so that we can completely review what we did. And next time, and I hope in my career, in my lifetime, I'd be happy with that we never do this again.
So can we put off just a little bit for that ad hoc committee, because I think we're all kind of like worn out on meetings right now. We've got a bigger picture for that ad hoc committee going on with all the entities we were just at yesterday.
I'd really rather not. I mean, and the reason being is I would really rather strike while the iron is hot, because as these things, we move further away from them, we become a little more melancholy about it, and I'd really rather, you know, we don't have to meet on a daily basis or anything like that. We just have to establish that we're going to meet. I'll take it upon myself to set up the meetings, to set up the agendas of the things that we'll talk about.
The meeting yesterday at 2 o'clock was about, that was the beginning of...
No, that's not a review of the, that is a separate incident from the initial incident.
Okay.
The meeting we were at yesterday is a project that we're working on. In the event that we have to evacuate again, we're developing a plan for that. But now once that plan is made, we have to go even smaller into that and go, how does that fit into our community, and what are the unique things for our community that must be put into that plan?
And that's what I'm saying is, once that is done, which is going to be done in a couple weeks, I think, that then we take our portion out of there, because we're identifying the places that we need to pay attention in that meeting yesterday.
That is a very small portion of what I'd like to do in the ad hoc committee.
Okay.
That is important, I mean, but
Okay.
it's...
Add it to the agenda then for next meeting. Anything else?
No.
Scott Huber?
No, the only thing I was going to mention, I just want to make one point, which is because I heard some criticisms about you know, who is the point, and so I want to get it from the government code all the way down to sort of an endless funnel all the way down to the city administrator.
The city charter.
Well, the city administrator, I'll go through the city charter here in just a minute. So, government code section 8630 and several others following that give the authority to this city to declare a public emergency or public calamity is the term that it uses. Now, so this council has the authority to declare that. Section 8.08.060 of the Oroville Municipal Code says that the city administrator, in times of an emergency, has the ability to authorize and to declare a local emergency when the city is affected, when the city council is not in session. And the government code gives that authority. It says it can last for up to 7 days. You have delegated that to the city administrator. There are several other provisions in the code and in the charter that also make reference to that, but that is the most direct ordinance that literally draws a straight line from the government code to the city council to the city administrator as to how that works. So anyway, I wanted to answer the charge of, well, how does the city administrator have the authority to do that? Well, because you gave it to him or her. That's the reason why. Now, it's limited to 7 days by the government code. And like I had a law school professor that would always ask these questions that there wasn't an answer to. But I thought, you know, if there is a real problem with the emergency spillway and it does go, what happens at the end of 7 days if you can't meet within the city? Because the Brown Act requires you to meet within the geographical limits of the city. What if you can't do that? Fortunately, we don't need to find an answer to that question because we're here. But anyway, but these are the things that lawyers think about when we have this stuff to think about. So, now, by the way, I will. Anyway, I'll open up to any questions you may have if you have any questions or comments or thoughts.
Well, one of the questions that has come up is that the city charter which was from 1906, was it?
It has been amended a few times, but I believe it was in the early 1900s when it first
So
came
that
about.
makes statements in contradiction to what we're talking about. Can you explain how we get from what the charter still says to where we are today?
So this is really more of a sort of a 10,000 foot aerial view picture. The state law, so federal law controls over all things that federal law controls. Those that it does not control, it leaves to the state. State law controls for all the things which it has, it's called, the term is occupied the field. To the extent the state law has not occupied the field, it leaves it to local government, county government, city government. So the charter is essentially a mini constitution for the city. Matters that are of a local concern may contradict with state law only to the extent that the state law has not occupied the field. If the state law has occupied the field, there is no room for the charter to control. And I can tell you that the statutes in the government code are fairly clear when they lay down these rules for local emergencies. State emergencies are dealt with under a totally separate section. So it's kind of an interesting, but I think flawed argument to say, well, the state laws that apply to all of these local communities have not occupied the field. I think they have occupied the field, and I think state law intended to occupy the field so that it could, so that the state and the legislature could lay down one method of procedure that would be followed in any locale, any location, whether it was just a city that had an issue or multiple agencies, a city, a couple of cities, a county, a region, that they would all follow the same game plan. They would all follow the same procedures. You can imagine the chaos that would ensue if someone were to come in, and I'll use Chief Legrand as an example. If he were to go into the emergency command center up Butte County and say, I'm in charge here because this is right next to the city of Oroville, and hey, I'm in charge. Sheriff Honea, you're not really in charge, I am. And you'd have another city that would step up and say, no, because that water flows through our community down the stream, so we're in charge. You can imagine the chaos that would happen. So that's why there is a very specific procedure laid out in the government code that deals with this. And so and quite candidly, I have looked at the charter and I don't think there's a whole lot that conflicts with what's here, by the way.
Just there's been some statements made to the contrary, so thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so they're done with their comments. We're looking for a motion on item 1 and then a motion on item 2. I'm sorry, Janet, are you still? Okay.
I motion that we accept the recommendations to adopt resolution number 8582, ratifying the acting director, Don Rest of Emergency Services, proclamation of existence of a local emergency, and accept the recommendation to adopt resolution number 8583, proclaiming the existence of a local emergency.
I'll second those.
First and second voting is open. All votes are in. Does anybody wish to change their vote? Voting closed.
This motion has passed.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the beginning.
I'd like to say something. Tonight, Chief Legrand said something to us that I think is really important, and that is that the DWR workers that are here are our neighbors, they're our friends, and they're working very hard, and they have no decision-making ability. They are taking their orders from Sacramento, and so we really need to be nice to them. We need to compliment them on the job they're doing and thank them. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Well said. Okay, let's move on.